As polls close and counting begins in the high-stakes Turkey elections, incumbent President Erdogan has taken a lead in the early counting. 16% of the total votes in the presidential polls have been counted so far, and President Erdogan is in the lead with 57% votes. His main rival, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, is in the second position with over 38% votes in his favor. The third presidential hopeful, Sinan Ogan, has so far only 5% votes. Now, most of the pre-poll surveys showed Erdogan trailing behind his rival Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, but the preliminary numbers appear to betray all such speculations. Local media reported strong anger against Erdogan, given the economic turmoil and the devastating effect of the earthquakes on Turkey. But for now, the numbers are still on Erdogan's side. More than 64 million people were eligible to vote in the presidential and parliamentary elections. The voter turnout for presidential polls stood at above 88%. For more on this, our correspondent Lara Villalon is joining us live from Istanbul. Lara, the initial trends indicating that Erdogan is very much in the running. What's the mood looking like on ground?
Exactly. Initial trends are pointing that Erdogan is leading this race. But we have to consider that are very, very preliminary results. Actually, we are getting the information from the main news agency of the country, Anadolu agency, but there is another agency, Ankara Haber, that is pointing out that with a lesser percentage of the ballots open, very different results. By now, Erdogan is leading the race, but all the opposition parties, they say that it's too early to tell, and that the information that they are getting, private information from the ballot boxes, indicates very different results. We will still have to wait to know who will be the next president of the country, but by now everything points out that Erdogan could continue with another term, even without the need of another election 2 weeks later, because he could surpass this 50% of the votes.
Exactly. So there is a chance that Erdogan can surpass the 50% vote mark. Now, Lara, the opposition is definitely coming in with a lot of promises. What's the mood of the nation like? Are people willing to move on from Erdogan, who's been at the helm since 20 years? Are they willing for change now?
It's very hard. Everyone is holding their breath, waiting for a change or defending their government. So far, Erdogan, after 2 decades, he created a very polarized, there is a lot of polarization in the society. So everyone expects that whoever wins, still there will be a lot of tension, because not only the presidential race, but in the parliament there will be new parties, new confrontations, new deals that we expect to have, because it looks like none of the coalitions could get a majority according to what the early results that we're getting. So we expect probably like a more polarized society by now.
Thank you for all those updates, Lara. That was our correspondent Lara Villalon joining us from Istanbul. All right. For more on this, joining us next on the Bulletin, live from New York, we have Mark Merowitz, a renowned political communicator who specializes in Turkish politics and foreign policy. Welcome to the broadcast, Mark.
Pleasure.
Mark, give us a sense of how crucial these elections are for the future of Turkey, of course. Erdogan one way and Kılıçdaroğlu the other. Where does it go?
Absolutely. But before I do, I would say that I'm surprised about the results you're indicating, because generally speaking, the results are not released until later in the day. Let's say 8 p.m. Turkey or 9 p.m. Turkey.
Very initial trends, very initial trends. So we're just
speculating.
Yes.
But I mean, the point is this, though. It shows the polarization, but I think that you have two different directions for Turkey in terms of Erdogan and Kılıçdaroğlu. Most importantly, Kılıçdaroğlu and his coalition say that what they're going to push for is a better relationship with the EU, a better relationship with Europe. As far as Russia, they've made some contradictory statements, because they are now accusing Russia of interference with the Turkish elections, which led to the they say, to the resignation or the departure of candidate Muharrem İnce. The other thing is, in terms of the system in Turkey, Kılıçdaroğlu and his alliance say they're going to go back to the parliamentary system, which was the system that existed before the referendum, which created the very powerful presidency of President Erdogan. Now, on the other hand, as far as Erdogan is concerned, yes, that may be more business as usual, retaining the presidential system, but the reliance on Russia will be the same or similar for either Kılıçdaroğlu or Erdogan, because the Turks are very dependent on Russia for energy. Now Russia is building a nuclear plant for Turkey. So that relationship, and also we can talk about the Ukraine war as well, and how that the implication of that. But I think the key point was about the coalition, which was made by your associate. This coalition has 6 parties in it, right, but only 2 of those parties have a very large. The Republican Party, which is Kılıçdaroğlu's party, has 134 seats or so or more, and the EE Party has about 34 seats. But the rest of the coalition have virtually no seats and no power. But Kılıçdaroğlu has said, if we get into power, all 6 parties, all of us, will have equal say. Now, we know that's not true. We know from coalition governments around the world, I don't think India probably also, I think your parliament has coalitions, Israel, France, and other countries. We know that when the coalitions come into power, they all fight with each other. And for Turkey's history, coalition governments have never succeeded. And I think the major difference between the 2 candidates, and I think this is very important to understand, is, of course, the economy. And it's kind of Clinton when he said it's the economy, stupid. And it's really true, because the economy in Turkey is hurting badly. Yes. But at the same time, you had a large group of mainly religious Turks who were brought into the middle class, who were energized into participating in politics and doing better in the Turkish economy. And I don't think they're going to forget about that. Most important and primary point is Turkey is a global player. Turkey is a global player under Erdogan. And the question is, I think, what Turks are going to be thinking about is, do we want to be a key player in the world? We're in a very tough region. We need to be involved. We need to be a strong state as compared to Kılıçdaroğlu, who has never won an election. Right. And furthermore, his experience was as the head of the Social Security Department in Turkey. So right. I think that those are the real concerns. Yes, and again, I would say this, it's depending whose eyes you're looking at. Are you looking through Western eyes? Are you looking through the Turkish eyes and Turkish mind? That's very different. Many of the commentators who have commented on this are really in the West. And they are very, let's say, antagonistic or not supportive. Even Biden, President Erdogan, has said that the United States is opposed to his candidacy because Biden made some comments about that. So if you're looking at it from the Western point of view, you get one idea. But if you look at it from the Turkish point of view and the Turkish priorities, yes, the economy, yes, the earthquake, all those factors are important, but at the same time, Turkey's role in the world, because Turkey has the history of being dismembered, attempted dismembering by the West early on in its existence when it started out as a republic. Yes, it was added to Turkey.
Exactly, that's exactly where I wanted to take this discussion next. The implications of the result, regardless whether we tilt towards Erdogan or Kılıçdaroğlu or the coalition now, what will be the result, what will be the implications of the result on Europe and geopolitics in the backdrop of Russia-Ukraine? As you said earlier, regardless of the result, the ties with Russia will not be harmed in any which way. But what will be the implications on a larger scale?
I think the implications are gigantic in the sense that, look, what Erdogan has been able to achieve, and again, you can criticize it or support it, but it is a fact, he's been able to multitask in a way fairly extraordinary. Look, he doesn't support the sanctions against Russia, but at the same time, right, he supports Ukraine and supplies them with weaponry and drones. And then Erdogan is the mediator who mediated or moderated to get the grain out of the Ukraine so that it could traverse Russian, denial and supply food to the world. So to achieve that was quite extraordinary. Could Kılıçdaroğlu achieve such a thing? I'm not so sure. At the same time, the relationship with Europe. Now, Kılıçdaroğlu is saying, now remember, I would say it's important, it's a promise. This is what he's promising. He's saying we're going to have a better relationship with the EU going forward. That is a big, big, big promise. It's a big ask. And you know what? I'm not so sure the Europeans are going to be in favor of that, because one thing that Kılıçdaroğlu has said is that he wants the Syrian refugees to go back to Syria. Well, if they're not going back to Syria, then they're probably ending up in Europe. So how is that compatible with having a better relationship with Europe? I think there are a lot of moving parts here, and a lot of it is, again, for better or for worse, you have Erdogan's record, and you can look at it. As far as Kılıçdaroğlu is concerned, you have a lot of aspirations. Now, there's some very good aspirations. Right. Maybe the changing of the system is a good idea, right, but you don't know. And also, to change the system as he proposes would require a large vote in the parliament, a referendum. Is it possible to do that? The last time around, that was a squeaker. That was very hard to do. As far as the global situation beyond Europe and internationally, clearly this will have a big implication, because what it means is, how are they going to, this coalition, forge a relationship with Europe when the coalition itself is left to right? You have every kind of political persuasion in there.
So if Erdogan comes back in, there is a record. Exactly. So if Erdogan continues, there is a record to go by. As far as Kılıçdaroğlu is concerned, there are a lot of promises as of now. But the people here in Turkey and the reports that we're getting, they are probably also wanting to see somebody else in power. But final results will obviously dictate what the nation decides for itself. Thank you so much for joining in, Mark Merowitz, political communicator specializing in Turkish politics, who joined us from New York.
Thank you.